Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Brooke Donohue. Hi, Brooke. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's really great to have you on. Brooke is a senior talent manager at Hermana Agency. It's based out of Calgary, Alberta. Brooke actually lives in Regina, so she's like me, work from home. And she told me today she has flex Fridays, so she's not working on a Friday, which I really appreciate.
So nice.
I love that. Brooke's been a talent manager representing influencers across the US and Canada for 3 years. And she landed her dream job before the age of 30, which I think is super cool because a lot of people are working their whole life to get their dream job and you're already there. So I think we'll touch on that more, but thanks for being on.
Oh my God, of course. This is my first podcast that I've ever been a guest on. Being a talent manager, I've been like in studios and like supervisor, like watching podcast recordings many times with the talent, but it's never been me in like the interviewee chair. So I'm a little bit nervous, but this will be good. I'm excited.
It's okay. Honestly, like I said, before we start recording, we always have a little chit chat, right? And I said it's really casual conversation. But it's funny because I've been a guest on podcasts and I get nervous and then I laugh. I'm like, I literally host a podcast and now I'm nervous. And you're just talking about things you know about, but I think that's just our human nature, right?
Yes, 1000%.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I gave a little brief intro of you and kind of what you do, but why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself and who are you and your job? What the heck do you do as a talent manager?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so my education and like job history was actually so I went to the U of R for education to be a teacher. I finished in like 4.5 years and I got like a dream teaching position. Like when I finished, I graduated with my high school education degree, and that's what I got a position in right off the bat. So I subbed for a couple months. I knew that teaching wasn't for me even when I was in school, but my parents kind of like threw me and they're like, I finished grade 12 and they didn't want me to take a year or any time off. So they're like, how about you go into education? That's what like your uncle and aunt does. And you get your summers off. And I was like, oh, like lots of holidays. That sounds great. Sure,
Yeah.
I'll do that. I have no idea what I wanted to do. And it was like in my second or third year of education that I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher, but I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. So I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to ride it out because my parents told me we're paying for 4 years of education or like 4 years of schooling. So either you ride this out and get a degree or you switch and then you're covering for whatever else it is after. And I was like, do you know what? I don't know what it is I want to do. So let's just ride this out. So then after I graduated, I was like, okay, where do I go now? So I was going to explore other career paths because with an education degree, like many people know, you don't just have to be a teacher.
Right.
But then I was provided with an awesome opportunity at a school that I went to myself. And so I was very familiar with like the staff and the procedures and everything that go with it. And I was like, okay, well, I just went to school for 4.5 years to get this teaching degree. Let's give it a shot. This is like a prime opportunity. So I taught for 5 years. And it's not that I hated it. I love the students. I love building those relationships. It just, the act of teaching itself. I couldn't talk about Shakespeare. I couldn't talk about math for the rest of my life. It just wasn't what I was passionate about. It was making the connections with students, and the lifestyle for sure was also great. Like working 8 to 3:30 is great also, especially we knew we wanted to have a family. So it provides a nice setup, great benefits, all those perks. But I didn't love what I was doing. So it was then during COVID that it kind of allowed me time to explore what it was that I wanted to do. So it was during COVID. Well, actually, back up. So a year before that, I had went to a tech conference with my husband. So my husband's a software developer, and him and some friends were going to this conference in Toronto called Collision. And it's a huge tech conference, celebrities and like media moguls, tons of people are there presenting on different things. And it was there that it kind of exposed me to like the world of like social media. I mean, I've always been really interested in pop culture, entertainment, social media, that sort of thing. I'm not an influencer myself by any means. I like to post about my life and like talk to people on social media, but I would never be an influencer. It's too much work. It's not my thing. I don't want to open my life up to people hating on me. Like, I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do, but I really liked the idea of like something in tech, something in social media, that sort of thing. So that's what I discovered there. And then COVID happened and we were sent home. And being a high school teacher, it was very different than being an elementary school teacher, because I have friends that are elementary school teachers that were so busy, like teaching, like it was almost more work teaching from home than it was in the classroom. Where
Yeah.
high school, it was totally different. It was almost like optional school. So I had my days where I just had nothing but free time.
Yep.
So I was able to really explore what it was that I wanted to do. And it was then that my husband's boss at the time had approached me and asked if I wanted to run an influencer campaign for them. And I was like, okay, well, I have no experience doing this. I said, I've been a brand ambassador for different local companies so a brand ambassador and influencer are very different. And people kind of use those terms like, I mean, influencer, content creator, ambassador,
affiliate,
content creator, all those different terms like interchangeably.
Yes.
But they really are different things. So when I think brand ambassador, I think of someone who gets services or products in return for content posted to their channel, right? They're not getting paid for anything. They're an ambassador of that company and they're posting because they are like a genuine fan. They're not getting paid, but they are getting perks, right? So I was
for sure.
an ambassador for different companies. But at this time, he gave me a great budget and he's like, here's X amount of dollars. Can you go hire like 5 to 10 influencers to just get the word out about our company? And I was like, absolutely, that sounds amazing. So I did that. I ran a whole campaign and he was really happy with the results of it. So I was like, I feel like no one in Saskatchewan is really doing anything like this. And if they were, it wasn't being done right, or it was really expensive. So they're charging a ton for a management fee plus the influencer. And it was just like not really something that was being utilized. So I started doing it freelance during COVID, gained mostly through word of mouth, just like various customers, and was building my resume in the influencer marketing space. And it was going really well. And then it was about a year in that I realized I hate working for myself. I am such a people person. I need to bounce ideas off people. If something goes wrong, I don't like being the person that like people have to come to only. Like I like having someone to be like, okay, like what do I do in this situation? And no one was really doing what I was doing. So I didn't really know who to talk to. And not that things went sideways often, but when something did come up and I wasn't sure how to navigate it, I didn't really have anyone to turn to.
Yeah.
And so that was when I had actually casted Kaylee, who is the CEO and founder of Hermana Agency, for a campaign I was running in Calgary. And it was then that I had realized that she had owned her own agency called Hermana Influencer Agency based in Calgary. And I had reached out to her one day and I was like, Kaylee, if I bring you all my clients, could you please hire me as a brand campaign manager? I said, I do not like working for myself. And really at that time, it wasn't that I was like trying to make a ton of money. I was just trying to find what my passion was and what I was trying to do.
Yes.
So I just told her, like, I'll bring all my clients over. Not that I had a bunch at that time, but I'll bring whatever clients I have over and let's work together. Like, would you hire me? And she thought about it for a bit and she's like, yeah. Because I mean, if someone comes to you and be like, hey, I'll bring you clients, hire me. Like, she was skeptical at first, which I mean, I'm sure everybody. But we met a few times and she's like, yeah, like, let's do it. So then I was a brand campaign manager at Hermana for a few months. And then another employee that works there was a talent manager, and she had her own roster and she was working really closely with the talent. So where I was always had like my brand or company hat on, like always advocating for that side.
Yes.
Her talent hat on, where she was always advocating for the influencer side. And I really liked what she was doing. So then it was then that I asked Kaylee if I could start scouting my own talent. And she was like, absolutely. So then I started scouting some talent. And when I say scouting talent, I mean like literally just scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, finding people that like I believe I could help their business.
Yeah.
So meaning like bringing them more paid partnerships and growing their platform. Reached out to a couple. One was really interested and we kind of hit it off. And she came on and she's one of our like biggest talent now at the agency. And then the roster just kept on growing. I would scout some more or referrals. And I've met some really amazing people along the way. And so, yeah, now I'm a full-time talent manager with Hermana. So then in COVID, I got pregnant as well. And so then after I worked through my mat leave because I didn't want to drop Hermana because I didn't know if they would pick me back up or like,
right.
Would have. But I didn't want to like lose the momentum I had going was the thing. I didn't want to lose the momentum of what I was building. So I worked through my mat leave, even though my Kaylee was like, Brooke, take time off. Like, you are working too hard. Like, you're working too much. But I was so driven now that I had found something that I was so passionate about.
You loved it. Yeah.
It almost made the transition of going from being like not a mother to a mother that much easier because I really struggled with that transition. So then now I'm a full-time talent manager. I didn't go back to teaching after my mat leave. And it was like the best decision that I ever made.
It's so crazy too, because probably, when you were in university, if someone would have said to you, you're going to be a talent manager for influence, you would be like, what is that? And also what?
Literally when people would ask me like, Brooke, because I was very vocal that I wasn't happy in education. Like it was not
a secret.
People wondered about. Like people knew that this was not something that I was super passionate about. And they'd be like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, like maybe be a housewife. Like I'll go on like Real Housewives of something. Like, I don't know, maybe that's what I'll do one day. My husband always got so annoyed with me. He's like, don't say that, Brooke. That makes you sound like silly. Like, don't say that. I literally had no idea
no clue.
what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. I've always loved reality television. And I was like, I would just be a really good housewife. So, I don't know.
A rich housewife.
I literally didn't know.
So
it's a good.
You know what I love about your story is that you really have created your own path, but also I feel like you created your own opportunities as well. Because had you not asked Kaylee, hey, can I come on? Hey, can I switch my path? Hey, you probably would still be a teacher right now and not loving it.
1,000%.
Yeah, it's crazy. You never know if you don't ask, right?
So true. And I'm such a advocate for speaking your mind and doing what your gut tells you, because I know so many people that just take the easy path or take the road of less resistance, and then they're in that same situation for who knows how long. So I just think if you want something better, or not even better, but you want something different, you need to take those steps to get there.
I 100% agree with that. And I think the thing is, people always talk about, oh, I make a really good wage. Oh, I have benefits. Oh, I've got holiday time, whatever it is, but they're miserable. So I guess if holiday time and benefits and a paycheck are what's most important to you, then you can just stay where you are and never make a change. But you need to be fulfilled. You need to enjoy what you're doing, and you need to want to wake up every day and want to do it, and not just go to work because you have to, right?
Right. And I think taking risks, I mean, it's such a scary thing to do, especially when you have such security and you have your parents telling you you should be blessed, or you're so blessed, look at what you have. Why are you like changing this? And now they're
Yeah.
so supportive. But like, I went into like a full startup. Like when I joined Hermana, there was only one full-time staff member. Like Kaylee was full-time the owner, and then 2 part-time employees. So like I was leaving something very secure to something that was like a startup mode, basically.
Yeah. Unknown, right?
Like we didn't have benefits, like we didn't have like, don't get me wrong, it was a very good startup situation, but still a startup. And now we've grown so much. Now we're at 9 employees, like I think 5 of those being full-time. We have great benefits. We have Fridays off. Like there's many perks now, but it wasn't always that way, but we've been able to grow to be there. So I think when you're passionate about what you do, things work out.
I agree. I totally agree. And the thing is, you have to go with that, whatever you call it, your gut feeling, your intuition, someone watching over you, whatever it is, you have to take that leap. And I did the same thing as you. I left a really great corporate job that I was 30 years old and had got a great paycheck, had vacation time, I had a car. Like I left all of these things for something that I'm like, I might not be able to pay my mortgage, but I'm going to really work at it and I'm going to make sure that I can,
Exactly.
And get where you need to be.
Resonate with that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, I would like to talk with you because you are a pro. I want to really dive into the world of influencers, brand ambassadors, affiliates. I know there's a million names for them. I, in a previous role, actually, I did kind of what you did before the talent manager part, where I found influencers for our company and got them to create content and to talk about us, why they liked us, how they used us, all of those things. But for a lot of people, it's kind of a scary world because they don't know much about it, right? And they think, oh, I got to get an influencer and just pay them a whole bunch of money and hope it works out. And I think that's not what it is, right? So let's do some education here for people. Let's just start out. You kind of talked about it a little bit, but maybe just give a brief difference. So an influencer versus a brand ambassador versus a content creator, because they are very different and you can be all three, but most people fall into one category, right?
Yeah, totally. So you're right. You can like dip into everything. So, and I'm sure that there's definitions out there that like are going to contradict what I'm saying. So I hope that this like makes sense. But when I think influencer, I think someone who has a really strong following, strong, loyal following that has like the power to influence their audience on what they're selling, on what they're promoting. So an influencer generally is getting paid from campaigns. So if you're saying you're hiring an influencer to promote your company, generally you're paying them for a paid partnership. So you're paying them X amount of dollars for them to deliver content to you. So whether that's an Instagram reel, Instagram story set, TikTok, a Twitch stream, any of that, that is what I think when I think influencer. When I think brand ambassador, I kind of explained that already, but that one is kind of more so when you're getting product or services in trade for content posted to your channels.
Yeah.
So lots of fitness studios do this. You'll get like a free membership and then you get to work out at their gym for free. And then you're expected to post once a month or post twice a month or that sort of thing.
Yep.
When I think content creator, I usually think like UGC or like artist route. So like UGC is user generated content. So a lot of brands use this when you don't have the budget for the influencer to post to their own channel. You would, in this case, you would be hiring said person. They're a great content creator. So you're hiring them to create 4 short videos that could be used as an IG reel, YouTube short, TikTok, but they're not posting it to their channels. They're just delivering that content to you so that you're able to use it organically. Then, yeah, that's like pretty much it. Affiliate, There's also affiliate too. That's like more so when you're hiring a influencer to post content to their channel, but they're given a specific link, like a UTM link, like a tracking link
or a code.
Or a code to post to their social channels. And then if a follower or person uses their code or link to purchase said items or services, they'll get a percentage or a dollar amount back. So affiliate is also often used with paid partnerships. So someone will be paid X amount of dollars plus 20% when a person uses their code, or plus $50 when their code is redeemed. So it's a bit of a mix, but I would say those are like the main categories.
A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. Yeah, I agree. And it's so interesting because they are all quite different, but I think most people have no clue. They just think, oh, an influencer and a brand is bad. It's all the same. And I just need to get a whole bunch and start talking about me, right?
Yes, exactly.
But yes and no, because I think it's more in depth than that, right? But we know that the world of influencing, I'll just call it influencing as kind of
it's easy. That's
broad,
like an umbrella term.
Yeah, exactly. It is huge. So why don't you tell us why a business would use an influencer or any of these things, and what are the benefits to that business?
For sure. So there's a few reasons why people hire influencers. I would say the number one thing is brand awareness. So even if an influencer is not great at getting ROI, so even if the influencer doesn't have a really strong link, if their link clicks aren't great on their Instagram stories, and like they're not bringing a ton of drive to the client's website or storefront, whatever it is, they're still getting the message about that brand to their audience of 150,000 followers or whatever it is. So brand awareness, I would say, is number one. The next thing I would say is sales. So a lot of our talent, a lot of influencers are really great at bringing return on investment. So there's one that I'm thinking of in particular, and brands just come back and they're like, I cannot believe the amount of people that bought from this person's stories and feed posts they post. Like, their audience just trusts this person so much that when they say something is good or legitimate, they go and buy it or try it for themselves. And that really has a lot to do with the creator. And it's hard for brands to judge that sometimes because it's hard to tell like who has a trusted audience or who doesn't. And you can look at different things like analytics and previous campaigns and stuff, but every brand hits so different with different audiences that it's kind of hard to tell without that initial trial campaign. Yeah. So brand awareness, sales, I would say, are like the main two. And even just like, I don't know what the word would be, like getting like notoriety, because influencers have like generally, and it's not to say that all do, have that like cool factor or like that it factor. So brands want to be associated with certain influencers that really resemble what their brand focus is. So first, I'm thinking of like Subway, for example, just like a local influencer is Mark Morris. He is a professional snowboarder, and they hire Mark because they want him to be recognized with Subway. So when you think Mark Morris, you think Subway, when you think Subway, Mark Morris. That sort of like a word association, that also works really well with influencer marketing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, I owned a clothing store, and I've sold it now, but I used influencers and brand ambassadors for my store. And it was so funny because some of them, their code was used often. Some of them, their code was never used, but people would come in the store and say, oh, I saw so-and-so. I saw their try on, and I really thought, like, I liked them. I liked the clothes. I liked how they told about it. And so I still got sales from the people that's codes were never used. But you're right, it was more awareness.
Even if it's not the direct ROI, like I was saying, you're still getting that brand awareness. So that's why when brands are frustrated, they're like, oh, we only got 50 link clicks and we wanted 150. They need to realize that there was still such value in getting that awareness out to their trusted audience.
Yeah, exactly. What types of businesses do influencers work for? Like, is it any business can use an influencer, or
It's
is it?
literally anything and everything. And I mean, not every influencer is going to accept, like, I turn down deals all the time, like really big dollar deals, because that brand doesn't align with what that influencer wants to be linked to.
Yes.
Um, and like when I say like big deals, like deals are ranging literally anywhere from like $1,000 to $100,000 for one deal. So it just really depends on what that influencer wants to be linked to and what they believe in and what they don't.
Yes, exactly. And I have here, I make notes as I'm going through these.
Yeah,
Um, but how do you find the right influencer for you, or how do you know that you've got the right one?
absolutely. So, I mean, this is such a, I guess, like lame answer, but hiring a professional that like really knows the market. So, like hiring an agency, hiring a reputable, hiring a reputable agency or
Yeah,
using a platform. There's so many platforms now, like Aspire IQ, Maverick, trying to think of some others, Tager, that you sign up for these platforms and like you'll put in like, I'm looking for a mom influencer located in California that has a demo of like 80% female. And these platforms are really expensive to use. So you can hire like an agency like Hermana to run this campaign for you.
yeah,
Or you can do it yourself. Like there's so many different options, but a lot of it is just trial and error, as well as doing your own research. So, like when we're scouting talent, we are literally scrolling through feeds, looking up different hashtags, looking and seeing what other similar brands. So, like, say I'm casting for a baby diaper company. I don't know why I have babies on the mind. So I'm casting for, say, Pampers. I'm gonna look maybe and see what or who Huggies has worked with,
yeah.
like recently, or what Little Rascals has, or other baby brands, and see what mom influencers they're using, and see if this would be a good fit for this brand. So I think seeing what like other competitor or who other competitors are using works really well. Like I said, looking up hashtags. Um, Also works really well. So that's why it's so important for content creators to be using appropriate hashtags and not just using hashtags that are trending so that the right people can find you.
Yes.
But yeah, so my top, I guess my like key answer would be to like hire a professional, whether that's an agency or whoever, or using one of those new like online tools like Tracker, Taker, Maverick, Aspire IQ, Mighty Scout, anything like that to like find or help you find
Yeah.
the right influencers, or just doing your own research by using hashtags, looking up who other brands are using that is like a similar niche to you, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I know that a lot of times I think this gets lost in the shuffle, but it's probably the most important thing is the fit, right? The fit of that
Mm-hmm.
influencer with your
Mm-hmm.
company.
Yes.
Because if they don't fit with your values and beliefs and what you kind of stand for, it's not going to work, right?
1000%. And that's one thing that we take very, very seriously at Hermana, is not ever signing talent that doesn't align with our values. And one of those things is being brand friendly. So we always want to make sure that our talent is brand friendly so that brands aren't ever nervous or worried when they hire the influencer, like, ooh, are they going to post something that's like a little raunchy or something that's not going to fit with our brand? They're
Yes.
very cautious that they have to align with our core values.
Yes. And I think too, I look back at growing up in the 80s and 90s and 2000s before there was social media, but there was still influencers and brand ambassadors for, let's say, a hair color company,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you saw Farrah Fawcett doing a Clairol commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, as a probably like teenager, I remember seeing some of those ads and being like, I don't actually think that Farrah Fawcett uses box dye on her hair,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
right?
don't actually think that like now Jennifer Aniston uses Aveeno lotion.
Totally.
So how do you avoid that? Because it looks kind of phony then or fake, right?
Yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, I feel like any of, like, for example, Selena Gomez and Pantene. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
there's always that sort of thing that's going to happen. And that still works though, because it's having us talk about it, right? Like the
That's
fact that
true.
we're even bringing up Farrah Fawcett and Clairol or Selena Gomez and Pantene, it's working, right? Like
Yeah.
the fact that we're even talking about it. So I think it's just bringing, again, that brand awareness. It's not trying to tell us that like Selena Gomez is using Pantene. I think it's just having her as the face of it is making us be like, so then when we're at the drugstore, maybe it's Pantene that we think about. I'm not buying it because Selena is using it. I'm buying it because it comes to mind because I remember seeing Selena using it. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
exactly. Yeah, no, it totally does. And I think too, influencer route is more that way, right? That's influencing you to buy it. Where brand ambassador, I think, is more of a genuine use, right? A
Exactly.
brand ambassador is more of someone that I already shop at your store. I already use your product. I already like your gym, whatever it is. And then you're compensating them for just telling everyone how much they like it.
Exactly. And I mean, there is perks with having brand ambassadors, but there's also like some disadvantages with it as well. The good thing when you hire an influencer is that you get to dictate what that content looks like. So you can send them a creative brief, you can send them key messages, you have X amount of reshoots, edits to request, you can dictate when that goes live. There's like so much more that the brand can say in that content when you are hiring an influencer for paid work. When you have a brand ambassador, this isn't to say always, but generally you can send a creative brief, but they don't have to follow it word for word. They can put their own spin on it, right? Because they are a genuine consumer or customer of the brand or product. So because of that, like they're going to put their own spin on it and they won't submit content for approval. They'll just post it, right? And then if the brand like really hates them, sure, they could say like, please take this down. But generally, you give them a set of guidelines, they read it over. Maybe they don't, I don't know, but they're not submitting content for approval. And I think the brand would also be limited as to where they could use that content as well. So there is advantages and disadvantages to both. I mean, huge advantage is that generally brand ambassadors, you don't have to pay them on top of giving products. So I mean, that's a win.
Right.
But it is nice for the brand to have say, especially like the bigger brands that like are very worried about what their public, I mean, everyone's going to be worried about what the public perceives of their brand. But when they have a lot of strict guidelines, that's when you want to pay the influencer to ensure that they're hitting all of those key things.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really great point because you can dictate more when you're paid. It's kind of like you're their boss in a sense. I mean, you're paying them to do a job. So you tell them what you need done, timeline, the message, whatever it is, and then they usually will send it back to you and say, how's this? Right? Before
and
you.
I think that's generally because influencer work, you have a contract, like sometimes the contracts can be up to like 30, 40 pages, right? So it's like, it's a very strict, like it's work for hire where a brand ambassador, generally there's no contract and it's kind of just like a partner, more so like a partnership. So yeah.
I think too, when you're getting someone to be a brand ambassador, they've probably already talked about how much they like you, like your product, like your business, your service, and that's why you're reaching out to them. So I mean, we can't say here, oh, you're safe. They're not going to say anything bad, but the likelihood that it's positive is very high because they are already like you, right?
Exactly. But the only issue that I generally see, like common issue, I generally see with brand ambassadors is them not posting in like the required timelines. They miss dates because it's not top of mind. They're not getting paid to do this. They're doing it because they're a fan of the brand and they'll get to it when they get to it, but it's not top priority. They're going to prioritize their partnerships that are paid and they have these set deadlines. So I would say that is like the one downside of not paying the talent is that they may not adhere to those deadlines as closely as if you were to pay them. And a lot of brands get really upset by that, but it's just kind of like the world of being in the brand ambassador space.
Yeah, I get it. And I'll be honest with you, coming from this life before, I paid people to post and they still didn't post on the day they're supposed to post. So
Totally.
it's not listen, I sent a lot of emails that were like, hey, we had you down to post today and didn't see the post. Oh, sorry, forgot, or, something came up. It still
You're
happens.
so right. But
Yeah.
I think when you do pay them, you do have that guarantee that even if they miss that day, they will post. Where sometimes
Yes.
brand ambassadors, they can ghost you and there's no like legal contract to hold. Sure, you're not going to hire them again, obviously, but then you did take that risk. There's always risks with everything, but
Of course.
I would just say that there's more guarantees with hiring a paid influencer.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, it's a lot of that. And we're going to talk here in a second about compensation, paying them, right? But I think a lot of it is your budget. Like if you're a small business just starting up, you probably don't have $10,000 to pay a whole bunch of influencers to talk about you. But maybe you start with more of a brand ambassador that might be a friend or someone you probably already know that you're like, hey, can you talk about me on your social media to get the word out there?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. When I first started using influencers, and I kind of did, when I had my store, I kind of did a mix of brand ambassador and influencer because a lot of people actually just talked about me on their social media and my business, and I didn't ever give them anything.
Yeah.
So it was, then when they came in to my store, I would give them a little gift or a discount or something as a thank you, appreciation. Yeah. But they talked about it just because they genuinely enjoyed it.
That's right.
Yeah, but the influencer side, when I first started that, I knew it was a strategy that worked, and I had an online store. So I'm like, these people don't need to come into my store. They can shop on my online store. But I will be completely honest with you. I had no clue, A, what I was doing, and B, how much to compensate them. So I oftentimes would just ask, like, hey, if you did a try on, what would you want for payment? And I know that it's such a vast world, like you said yourself. A contract can be from $1,000 to $100,000. But how the heck do you know what to pay these people? What are some good, is it number of followers? Is it what they're doing for you? What's just some good advice on that?
So I'm going to plug, so Kaylee, she is our CEO founder for Mana. She is actually creating a tech platform right now called Norm, and there's an Instagram account for it. I think it's norm.ai if you guys want to check it out on Instagram, but it's going to be like a contract reader and rate provider. So you'll type in what you're looking for and it'll give you what to charge brands or what to expect to pay that influencer. So that's up and coming.
Awesome.
But in the meantime, there's so many things and it's such a gray space. So when we bring on new talent, we have to set rates, right? So I can kind of walk through what we generally look for. So I would say number one is following count. Now, that doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot these days with bots and people buying and what are they called? Following circles or comment circles or communities where a group of people be like, okay, I'll always comment on your paid post and you always comment on mine. It's really hard to read that. So I would say following is number one, but take it with a grain of salt. Number two is engagement. I would say engagement is so, so key. So when I say engagement, I mean number of likes, number of shares, number of comments. How engaged are people with that influencer's content is a really big one. Is that mine?
No, someone's printing at my house apparently right now while we're recording. So I'll just apologize for that, folks. If you heard that, that's an old school printer in my office here where I'm recording the podcast. So
all good. So I would say engagement is really closely after following because you need to use the following to gauge the engagement, if that makes sense. So say they have 150,000 followers, generally we're looking at 3 to 4% engagement as good engagement. Anything over that is really good. Anything lower than that, I'd be a little sus. I'd be a little bit suspect of if their followers are really engaged with what they're posting. That's not to say that people under the 3% engagement aren't quality influencers, because we do rep talent that do have below 3% engagement. But maybe they're just in a little bit of a dry spell right now and they need to get their engagement back up. So generally 3% engagement is kind of the baseline as to where we look for. Okay. And then I guess the next thing would be niche and how in demand they are. So if we're talking about an influencer who has there's someone that I'm thinking of and they probably receive, I would say 20 brands a day reaching out to work with them. And like,
Yeah.
these aren't just like spammy brands. These are legitimate big brands. And so when you're in such demand, you can also bump your rates up, right? Because
Right.
you can be a little more picky and choosy with that. So I think and your niche. So if you are like right now, a creator that would be really in need would be a female gaming streamer or female tech streamer or female tech creator that doesn't post super sexualized content, that is like very family friendly. If you were that type of creator, you would be in high need right now, just based on like what we see every day. And that's not to say that like there's other, like if you also like have very luxe style, very high-end content, very editorial fashion content, you're also in high need. So it just really depends on the niche that you are in. So like to recap, I would say following size, engagement, niche, and demand all kind of dictate where you lie in terms of rates.
And I think too, an important thing to point out with engagement is it's okay to ask them, like send screenshots of one of your posts or something so that you can see that, because you don't actually know. Like they can say, oh, my engagement is this much, but if you don't actually know that, it's okay to ask, right?
Oh, 1000%. And like you can gauge engagement without them sending screenshots either. You can go to their profile, you can look at their average likes, their average comments, their like, yes, you would need it for like shares and stuff and for some like deeper analytics. Asking for analytics is never a bad thing, as long as like you're not just asking just because you're curious. As long as you have like
a reason
that you need it for. I mean, absolutely. You can ask for link clicks. You can ask for average story views. All of that is totally legitimate. And usually talent will include that in their media kits.
Yeah, I was going to say too that oftentimes they'd have something to send you and give you like a demographic, who follows them, other people they've worked with and stuff. And that's really important to go on. When I had my store, literally people would say like, oh, just give me a $50 gift card. And the next person would say, I want $500 of clothing, or I want $1,000 for one post. Like it was so all over everywhere. And it was confusing as the person reaching out, because I had no clue. I didn't know if I was paying them enough, too much. I didn't know, right?
And Mackenzie, there is literally no cut and dry answer. Like someone with the same following and similar engagement may charge $1,200 and the next person may charge $6,000. There really is no black and white answer, but it depends on how badly you want to work with said person. Like if that person that's charging $6,000 and you really want to work with them, you might pay it. And maybe that's why they're charging $6,000, is because 20 other brands really want to work with them as well.
Exactly.
So that's when it comes back to how in need or like how in demand the influencer is.
Yeah. What's the best way? So if people are listening to this right now and they're like, okay, I really need to get on the influencer, once again, umbrella term, what's the best way to contact them? Like, do you just send them an Instagram message, or what's the best way to like chat with them?
Yeah. So when I was a newbie, I would just DM them. I found that was like the easiest way to do it. But looking back on it, generally that's seen as like a little bit unprofessional, I would say. So I would like now I haven't done a brand campaign myself in a couple of years, but if I were to do one now, I would for sure email them. So generally 90% of talent will have their emails in their Instagram bio. So if you're scouting on TikTok, a lot of the time they don't have their emails in there, but they'll have their Instagram linked. So then you just click their Instagram and then check out their email there. Or if they don't have an email, then you're forced to DM them, which I mean is totally fine too. I think that email would be the preferred route and like the best way to get a reply, because generally it'll be an agent or someone who'll get back to you right away compared to the talent themselves, and they may check their DMs once a month, right? So exactly, quicker, more effective reply, I would email. But if it's someone smaller or someone you're just looking to have as a brand ambassador, DMing them is totally fine.
Okay, awesome. And what if things go south? What if you pay them and it's not good content, it's something happens. I had someone tell me a story once that they were working with someone, and I'm not sure what happened, but the influencer took something that wasn't it, they understood something, and they thought it was a negative thing, and they of course went on social media and said, I'm working with this company and they're jerks, and things went south. Is there any way to fix that, or what do you do?
So do you mean like went south from the brand side or from the influencer
From the
side?
brand side. So if
From the
I'm
brand
hiring
side.
someone and they either don't post, or they post something I didn't approve, or they say something negative about me, what do I do?
Yeah. So I mean, that's why hiring a professional and getting them contracted is so important. And like
Yeah.
I cannot reinforce that enough because stuff does happen, right? Like that does happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think like a lot, like I review contracts all the time, and there's always clauses in there like if you are not happy with said product or person you're dealing with or whatever, you can legally not post on your social media, like I don't know what the word would be, like criticizing the brand or
Yeah.
criticizing whoever. So it'll be in the contract that they cannot do that. Or it'll also be in the contract that like the brand gets X amount of reshoots or edits to make sure that that content hits what they are looking for. So there's been many times, it happens, I shouldn't say all the time, but it happens more frequently than people probably think, where a content creator submits content and unfortunately it just doesn't hit what the brand was looking for. So with Hermana, we typically set up a call with the brand and the influencer prior to starting the content creation process so that we can really align on what the influencer is thinking to create, what the brand wants, and the influencer and the brand rep can talk and figure that out so that we can limit those amount of reshoots and edits.
Yeah. That's
Um,
smart.
but if you don't do that or a call isn't possible, sending a concept ahead of time is so important. So, like sending 2 sentences, 2 or 3 sentences, being like, this is my idea, this is where I'm going to shoot it. What do you think of this? And going back and forth before you actually get into that content creation process has saved us a ton of time as well. But yeah, I would just say like contracting, make sure that like clauses are in there to protect you and the business is really important, as well as ensuring that you guys are on the same page with what the vision is for the content.
Yeah. And I think just setting those expectations, right? Like this is what's
Exactly.
expected from both sides. And then and that
Exactly.
really limits you. It's like any contract, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Do you have a most important lesson you can share, whether that's from your career journey or if that's
Yes.
working with
Yeah.
influencers?
1000%. And this one might be like really niche to me. But like I said before, I am like a big pop culture guru. Like I love celebrity gossip. And if you like know Demois, like I love hearing about like celebrity lives and watching reality TV and that whole thing. So there was one time that I was at New York Fashion Week and we were out for dinner at this really bougie restaurant. And I saw someone that I recognized from a reality show and I posted them on my Instagram story, just like, oh my God, look who's here.
Yeah.
And anyways, later on in that night, I ended up becoming friends-ish with the person that I had posted about. And we had a few drinks, we were mingling, and she was so sweet. And I really liked her, and we had talked about work and whatever. And then after a couple drinks, I went home and didn't really think about my phone or social media. And then the next day, she had texted me and she was like, "Hey, Brooke, I really enjoyed meeting you last night, but I saw what you posted on social media, and I just don't love that you had posted like seeing me out, and I think it's a little bit weird and like whatever." Anyways, we're fine. We've talked it out since, but it just like really showed me that like in this line of work, you are working with talent that like are in the public eye, right? They're
Yeah.
posting, they've got hundreds of thousands of followers, they're on television shows. I can't be the fangirl or like that type of person that I used to post about or whatever. So I
Yeah.
think that was my biggest learning moment in my career so far was, okay, Brooke, when you are at these really cool events or these brand events or premieres, whatever it is, let's just not take out your phone and let's just be cool because it may bite you in the butt. So that would be my biggest learning moment.
I love that. And I was going to ask you next, one thing I wish you had known, but I feel like that's kind of the same, probably the same answer. Don't worry. Yeah,
1000%.
I've fangirled before. And because I used to go to New York and LA all the time for
Yeah.
fashion and buying and stuff. And I fangirled before, and same thing. Then afterwards, I was like, oh my God. Like
Like,
I'm
I was so embarrassed. I woke up the next day and she texted me. I was like, oh my God, she texted me. Like, we're friends. Because, like,
yay.
we were talking all night and she was very sweet. And then she was like, I don't love that you posted that. And I was like, I don't love
Uh,
that either. I am so
delete.
embarrassed. I'm like, I did not think you would ever see this. Like, I have 2,000 followers. I did not think you would, like, 2,000 followers, literally 90% is from, like, Saskatchewan. So I didn't think
Yeah.
that anyone would ever see that. So that was my biggest learning moment. And yeah, I would never do that again.
No, I agree. I guess too, it's like if we're in a business setting, even though that was a casual setting, you still, in a sense, have to have your business hat on, right?
Totally. Like, we were just out for dinner, right?
Yeah.
But because it was New York Fashion Week, there was lots of celebrities out everywhere. We were at a very bougie restaurant. We saw lots of people there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was excited. And you're right, it wasn't a business setting technically, so I didn't think it was, but you just never know. And I
Yeah.
think it was just such a good learning moment for me that you always are representing your talent, you're representing the agency you're with, and just to always be extra professional.
Yeah, that's great advice because it does take you a long way, right? And
It does. And like just something as silly as one instant, and like I didn't even say anything. I literally just took a photo of her from like afar and was like, oh my God, look who it is. But even just that like
yeah,
could make someone feel uncomfortable or whatever. And yeah,
yeah.
it was a definite learning moment.
No, that's a great lesson. Thank you so much, Brooke, for being on. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or the agency? What's the best place for them to go?
Absolutely. So right now we don't have a company website. It's currently under construction or reconstruction, I should say. So everything Hermana Agency, our talent, all that good stuff is on Instagram. So at hermana.agency. Ton of information there. You can also follow myself if you like. Like I said, I'm not an influencer, but I like to post about the different cool events that we get to go to, my talent wins, all that good stuff. So you can follow me at Brooke Donohue _. And yeah, that's about it.
I love it. I always tell people, go ahead and follow me, but all you're going to see is pictures of my food, kid, and holidays. So
Right?
if you like
Exactly.
that
All they're going to
stuff,
see for me is my daughter, my husband, and then some cool trips I get to do through work.
yeah, exactly. That is awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of people are going to really value this info. So thank you so much for everybody listening. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.